One of my favorite things lately has been interacting with all of the other like-minded small business owners inside of my free online community. If you want access to free resources, tools, trainings, tons of great sales advice, and just general encouragement for your business journey, then click the link in the show notes and join myself and other small business owners inside the She Sells Differently Facebook group today.
And I did have a marketing plan in place, and we called it a pod party. So I walked you through the pod party, you put everything together. And what happened was on launch day, because we had marketed it correctly to a lot of people, you launched at number 39 on the Apple charts for marketing, which is like massive because that is one of the hardest charts to rank on, which you do month over month.
Hi, friends. Welcome to She Sells Differently, the show for aspiring women entrepreneurs looking to overcome the fear of selling and grow thriving businesses from a place of authenticity and confidence. I'm Andy Hart, and it wasn't all that long ago that I was a sales executive for a Fortune 500 company. But I knew in my heart that I was called to use my gifts for something more, something different. That's exactly why I created the She Sells Differently podcast. Each episode is going to deliver you business strategies, tools, and mindset shifts to help set you and your brand apart from our culture's expectations. It's time to elevate your sales and build a profitable, sustainable business you're proud of. One built on integrity, grace, and humility. It's time to learn how to sell differently. Welcome to the She Sells Differently podcast. I am so excited that you are here. It is our 1-year anniversary episode, and I can't believe it's been a year. Wow, we have come so far. So I actually have a special guest today, probably the one person that knows more about my podcast than I do. It is Liz Chapman, my podcast manager. Welcome, Liz.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm so excited.
Yes, thanks for joining me. I wanted to have Liz on because we are going to share all things about the She Sells Differently podcast today. Some stats, some interesting tidbits about what's happened with She Sells Differently podcast this year, the highs, the lows of launching a podcast, and what I would recommend and what Liz would recommend if you are going to launch a podcast. And also, because this is the She Sells Differently podcast, how you can use a podcast to help you sell more. So, without further ado, we'll dive on in just a little bit. So, that being said, Liz, I'm going to jump in and ask you a question up front.
All righty.
Tell us what you do as a podcast manager and how you help the She Sells Differently podcast on the back end.
All right. So once you record your podcast, it gets uploaded into Google Drive. And then from there, everything goes to me. So I take everything out. The editing gets done. The show notes get done. Your graphics get done. Your reels get done. So for you, it's really a one thing. Like all you have to do is record, and then everything gets sent to me. And then I do everything in the back end. And then you approve everything. And then everything gets scheduled out so that it's a really automated process. Because as you know, having a podcast can take a lot of time. So once you're done with your portion of it, that time goes back to you, that you don't have to do any of those additional pieces, and you could do more of the things that you like to do.
Yes. Liz is like the fairy godmother of podcasting. Seriously, because when I get done recording, it's so nice to just like upload that and be done with it. I love it. And I will say this too, just to be able to like trust someone with that part of your business is so nice. So, yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say I'm the best because I'm not, but to be able to trust somebody is huge. And to take somebody into the back end of your business does take a lot of trust to put into people. So I love that we have that trust together.
Yes. Well, I will say you're the best. So I can
thank
say
you.
that. Let's talk about how I found you because I think that this is interesting too, because I actually teach this to a lot of my students is you had a kind of like a mini course that you use as a lead magnet. And I teach my students how to use lead magnets. And so I subscribed to a bundle. This was probably a little over a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And you had a mini course. Tell us about that mini course.
So, like you said, I have a mini course. It's how to launch a podcast and it's a workshop. So, it's like a 60-minute workshop and it covers like the basics of launching a podcast. And like you said, I did it because it was a lead magnet for me. It was to get people onto my email list where I could nurture them and then bring them into my services, which is what happened with you.
Yes. And I remember I was visiting family and listening to Liz's workshop. And it was so valuable. I was like taking notes. And I was thinking, like, I can do this on my own because what you are teaching, how to launch a podcast,
Absolutely.
you can do it on your own.
Yep.
The point though is I don't have time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where really you came in. And at the end of it, you're like, book a free consult call. I did. And I was like, hired.
Yeah, we
So
just like did it. And the other thing
yes.
with that is that with the time piece of it, you just didn't have the time to do it because what I find is one, you lack the time, and two, it's the accountability. So you brought me on to do something, and now I'm going to make sure we do it because a lot of times, like I am terrible about buying courses and not doing the thing. So having that one-to-one support meant that we got it done and we got it launched.
Yes. So let's talk about the launch because I first hired you to help me launch.
Hmm.
And so you had a whole launch plan.
Yes.
And I had been wanting to launch a podcast for a long time just to serve my audience and to teach and to really bring them into kind of like what you were talking about with your workshop, bring them into my sphere of influence. And I just really had no clue where to start. And you had everything organized. And so, kind of talk a little bit about the launch process and then the She Sells Differently launch because that actually blew my mind.
I
So,
love that. So podcast launches are my favorite thing because we start where you guys are really just unsure of what you're doing. And by the time we're done, it's like you've spread your wings and you're flying kind of thing. So I utilize Airtable and everything is laid out in Airtable. So from developing the idea to a marketing plan to recording. And then once you've recorded, everything comes back to me. So like those first few weeks are like very you heavy where you're developing your idea and we're keyword researching because SEO is huge when it comes to podcasting. So that's a big focus. And then once you're done recording, I handle the rest of it up to launch day. And I did have a marketing plan in place and we called it a pod party. So I walked you through the pod party, you put everything together. And what happened was on launch day, because we had marketed it correctly, to a lot of people. You launched at number 39 on the Apple charts for marketing, which is like massive because that is one of the hardest charts to rank on, which you do month over month. Like you continue to chart month over month on those Apple charts. And then the coolest part is like you were up there with Jenna Kutcher and Amy Porterfield, like those really big names in the podcasting space. And there was She Sells Differently podcast. So that was really awesome.
it was so crazy because I'll never forget you messaging me on Slack and you were like, you're never going to believe, like, you launched, you're at 39. And I was like,
Yeah.
what? It was like one of those high moments
Yes.
for 2024 for
Yeah.
sure.
It was so exciting to see.
Yeah.
Because like I started watching you go up and up the charts. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're in the top 100. No, we're in the top 50. No, you're in the top 40. Like it was so exciting.
Yeah, that blew my mind that that was even like, I never even thought that that was possible. So, yeah, it makes me so excited for 2025 because if I was able to launch at that, like, and like just consistently be in, rank
Yeah.
on the charts, and even to see, and like in the top 5%
Yes. You're
globally.
globally top 5% ranked podcast.
Like, to see the growth has just been tremendous, and so I'm just excited about 2025 and what that will bring, so
I agree because I like to think of it as like a snowball. So you started, at this number of downloads and you have just gained momentum and you continue to gain momentum. Like we talked about in October, you doubled your downloads. And I shared this number with you that you've grown your podcast from just under a year now, 2,270%. That is so much growth.
Yeah. I think one of the things that is really so exciting to me is that I will have a conversation with a client or like a potential client, and they will say, I've been listening to your podcast for months now. And that's so exciting to me because just to know that they have been learning or just, a fellow, like just following for so long and just the hard work is paying off. And so it really is a tool to serve my audience well and that they're learning and they're able to make an impact on their business from the things that they're learning here on the podcast.
Absolutely.
What advice do you have for anyone out there that's thinking about starting a podcast, and they see maybe the potential for their business? Like what advice do you have for them?
Don't give up. So many people give up too soon because they solely look at like numbers. You have to look beyond your numbers and you have to be resilient and you cannot give up because it is going to be pretty hard in the beginning as you're gaining that traction. You will get there, but it's going to take some time. But so often I see people give up too soon right before they hit that point. And I think the saddest part of all, because you put all this time into it and then you give up too soon. So it's
Yeah.
just really being resilient. And even on the hard days, knowing that if you just keep going, it gets easier and your download numbers are going to keep growing, but it just takes time.
I see that too with my wholesale students because they're constantly pitching to retailers. They want to get their products on boutique shelves and they get frustrated. And I'm like, don't give up. Don't give up. Like you're one no away from a yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so it's really, I think that that's just wise advice for life in general,
I agree. Totally.
Yeah. So, what tips would you say, or maybe, I mean, this is probably a question for both of us, but using a podcast to really build trust and establish expertise, what tips would you share?
I would say, so what I'm seeing now is a big move towards incorporating stories. So it's really great to teach and show your expertise, but having those stories to really draw your listener in and connect with you on a more emotional level makes a huge difference because anybody can teach, but they're connecting with you for a reason. So you want to have like that one-to-one personal connection. So the biggest tip would be to create that connection on a personal level because like I'm going to connect with you more over a story you told. Yeah, I'm really excited to hear the tips and things you're going to teach me, but it's those stories that are going to draw me in and bring me back week after week.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's true from just a sales perspective too. So also want you to share because I'm super excited about this. It obviously was your workshop that drew me in, and that's how we started working together. So tell the She Sells Differently listeners about your new course that you just launched.
I just launched Podcast Launch Simplified because I love launching podcasts so much that I wanted to bring it to more people. So I took my coaching framework that you went through and I turned that into the course. So everything that you did in my coaching framework is now in the course. So it's literally walking through from your idea to launch day. Everything in between, the SEO strategy, the marketing strategy, how to record, and then, of course, for them, how to edit because they're going to do their own editing. So it's an all in one stop from how to launch a podcast to actual launch day. And then there's bonuses like monetization. I was just at PodFest 2025. So they talked a lot about monetization. So all of those things I learned there will go into a bonus to help them monetize when they're ready.
Yes. So if you're interested in that, you can find out more in the show notes.
I'll put a link there.
Yes. And then also, if someone wants to work directly with you, how would they do that?
You can just go to my website, lizchapmanco.com, and then you can just book a discovery call right off the Work With Me page, and That simple.
Awesome. So, as far as what's coming up in season 2, we're already a couple episodes into season 2, but I am super excited to bring you guys more selling secrets this season, a lot of wholesale content, because I know we have a lot of product makers that are wanting to really dive into wholesale. And so I'm going to be bringing a lot more of that in season 2. We're going to have a lot of guests this year and industry experts. And so I appreciate you guys tuning in every Wednesday to the She Sells Differently podcast. And my ask of you guys and the support that you guys bring is that if you have not yet subscribed to the podcast and rated and reviewed, if you would take just a few seconds to do that, that would be a huge blessing to both myself and Liz as we work on the podcast. It is just, it's a blessing to us, and we would just be grateful for your rating and review. So thanks for tuning in. Liz, thanks for being my very special guest.
Thank you for having me on.
Yes, and we will see you next week for another episode of the She Sells Differently podcast. All right, that's a wrap on today's episode of She Sells Differently. Friends, it would be a huge blessing to me if you would take 2 seconds to rate and subscribe to my podcast. New episodes drop every Wednesday. Until then, I'm cheering you on in your entrepreneurial journey. See you next time.